Hi, welcome to Miss Richardson's U.S. History 5-Minute Lectures. This information will be U.S. Notes 2.9, Tradition versus New Ideas in the 1920s. It includes information that aligns with the second section of your Unit 2 study guide. Remember, you have control of the lecture, so pause whenever you need to, write down any questions you have to bring to class, and rewatch as often as you need. And make sure that you're using your study guide to take your notes. Let's go ahead and get started. As you've heard in the notes so far, there were many new advancements in the 1920s. Radios, advertising, cars, assembly lines, music, movies, washing machines, vacuum cleaners, refrigerators, all kinds of stuff. All of these gained in popularity in the 20s. As more and more people began to adopt the new technologies and new ideas that developed during the time, it created a conflict between those who favored the new ideas and those who favored traditional ideas. Traditional ideas or values tended to be religious in nature. Traditional religious values were prized above new scientific theories. Moral behavior was valued over the flappers' actions. Prohibition was viewed as a good and necessary aspect of a moral society, rather than a hurdle to just fun and entertainment. With such opposing views during the time, it was only a matter of time before the two groups clashed and had conflict. That clash and conflict came in 1925 in the form of the Scopes trial, or the Scopes monkey trial. Now, what happened in the monkey trial? Well, unfortunately, there were no real monkeys involved because, wouldn't you have loved to see monkeys in court? The trial centered around the issues of evolution and whether or not it should be taught in schools. So it was evolution versus creationism, and should it be taught in schools in Tennessee? John Scopes was a biology teacher in Tennessee in 1925. Under the Butler Act, which was a Tennessee law, no teacher in Tennessee was permitted to teach evolution in their classrooms. They were only permitted to teach creationism. These two ideas very clearly aligned with the two sides of society. Evolution represented the new ideas and technology of the time. Creationism represented the traditional ideas and values of the time. Mr. Scopes taught his classes about the theory of evolution and was subsequently charged with violating the Butler Act. This was intentionally set up so that the case would go to trial. In the court case, Scopes was defended by Clarence Darrow, a famous defense attorney, while the prosecution used the attorney William Jennings Bryan, who had run for president 3 different times. So both attorneys were very famous. That was going to bring attention to this trial and to the issue that people cared about. With famous attorneys, a national conflict, and new publicity technologies, the Scopes trial was followed by Americans all over the country. They actually listened to arguments on the radio. It created talk and debate throughout the entire country. The verdict actually mattered very little. Ultimately, the case was about bringing attention to the conflict between the two groups in America and their different views. It was not really about whether or not Scopes was guilty or innocent. The town of Dayton, Tennessee, where the trial was held, became a media circus, really the first of its kind in American history. People who supported both sides, with absolutely no connection to Dayton or even to Tennessee, traveled to the city to set up protests, rallies, signs, and attend the trial. They wanted the media to support them and their ideas. They wanted to be the ones who were right. In the end, Scopes was found guilty for violating the Butler Act and fined $100, which is around $1,350 today. The verdict was actually later overturned on a technicality, so he never even had to pay any money. But as I said, the case was less about the violation of the law and more about the law and what it represented to Americans. This case demonstrated the internal conflict that American society was having during the 1920s. So this is the end of U.S. Notes 2.9. I hope you learned something. If you have any questions, make sure you bring them to class. I'll see you then.